Hi everyone, I hope you're well. So we are back in this little spot with a cup of tea and my notebook, ready to talk through my 2022 finances, budget, kind of what I'm planning to save on and what I'm planning to spend on. So I never actually planned to make this a video at all because so many of us have different priorities, different values, different needs, different wants, that I wasn't sure that kind of sharing this would offer any value. However, so many of you got in touch after watching my What I Spent in 2021 video with just such lovely feedback. And a lot of the comments were around that you found it helpful hearing me talk through the reasons that I spent on certain things, the reasons that I wanted to save, kind of my thought processes behind saving and spending. And yeah, that was so great. And a few people kind of said, you know, would you talk through your plans for 2022? So here we are, happy to share. Now, I've got to be honest, this is the first time that I've sat down kind of and planned out my finances in this way, because previously, the goal of saving for a house deposit was so big that, you know, and house prices were continuing to gallop away, that I just really had to put everything I could into saving. And every purchase that I wanted to make was kind of critiqued against wanting to save. So as I say, this is the first time I've done this. So what I did, in sort of the same vein as a pros and cons list, I wrote down the reasons that I want to save. Then I wrote down the reasons that, or the things that I might want to spend on this year. And then I kind of went through each section thinking about, is this a priority this year? Is there another way that I could kind of do this? And yeah, worked out my priorities for 2022. Let's start with save. Now, I truly believe when you are saving, you need a reason why, especially if you are on a no buy or a low buy. Now, the reason really doesn't matter so long as it's important to you. It can be debt repayment, it could be saving for a house deposit, it could be saving for a retire early fund. It really doesn't matter so long as it's important to you. I just really found in the past, I just wasn't as effective at saving if I didn't have like a reason why or a goal in mind. So the first thing on the list of reasons I want to save is that I'd really like to be able to make some mortgage overpayments. Now, through not spending much last year, I am thrilled that I have been able to make overpayments amounting to 5% already, which is amazing. Now, the maximum I can overpay in any 1 year is 10%, otherwise I get an early repayment charge. So I'd love to be able to kind of add another 5% to reach that maximum 10% in my first year. However, that is no easy ask. So that would require some quite consistent saving. Now, the second big reason that I want to save this year is that I've been thinking a lot about increasing my emergency fund. I think I've mentioned in previous videos that the industry that I work in has had a reasonably tough time throughout the pandemic, even just as recently as a couple of weeks ago, some colleagues at other companies were made redundant. So although I've been lucky this far to keep my job, the industry as a whole still feels a little bit precarious. So with that in mind, I've been thinking about increasing my emergency fund by an additional 3 to 6 months basic living expenses. Now, I'm lucky in that I already have quite a healthy emergency fund, but by adding that bit more to it, obviously it would help if the worst happened, but also I just feel like it might give me some options. So I don't know, if I was made redundant, I might be able to consider looking at business opportunities rather than rushing straight out and trying to get another job in the industry. So that is something that, you know, I'm really thinking about. But again, saving that sort of money is no easy feat. So let's move on to my spend list. Now, I started by writing down all of the things that I might want to spend on this year. So we have house, which is probably no surprise as a new homeowner. You know, this house is beautiful as it is, but I think all of us want to kind of put our own little stamp on things. And that can be broken down further into kitchen, sofa, dishwasher, decor elements, and basic expenditure. Then we have garden, which can be broken down into planting, redesign, and furniture. And then we've got skincare and cosmetics, clothing, and then holiday and entertainment. So once I'd got this list as a basis, I then went through every single section and kind of tried to work out how important that was for me, how realistic was it, and is there any rules for spending in each category, and is there a way that I can kind of still work towards what I want to do, but maybe in a more cost-effective way. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to start with holiday and entertainment. Now, I haven't had a foreign holiday for a number of years now. Obviously, I was saving to buy a house, so it kind of wasn't high priority. And I've thought really long and hard about this in the last couple of days, but I'm not really bothered about one this year either. Now, I know some people love their kind of foreign holidays and will probably recoil in horror at that, but I don't know, maybe it's because I spent time living abroad when I was younger. Maybe it's because I just find the English countryside truly beautiful, but I'm just not bothered. So I did think maybe I could have a holiday here, or maybe I could just embrace the good old-fashioned day trip. So I'm actually a National Trust Life member, and I recently also traded Tesco Club Card points. If you can trade them and you get triple their value. So I swapped those for a English Heritage membership. So if I went to either National Trust sites or English Heritage sites, essentially all of those would be free this year. So I'm thinking that that's probably what I'm going to do, and the added bonus would be that I'd get to sleep in my own bed. Also, it would give me an opportunity to get back into photography. I'm, very, very amateur, but I do really enjoy it. I particularly enjoy taking photos of kind of landscapes, the countryside, beautiful buildings, etc. So I would still find it really, really enjoyable to do those things. So when it comes to entertainment, I'm not bothered about having a huge spend here either. Day trips would obviously form part of entertainment anyway. Now, I would like to kind of budget for a few meals out with friends, something I've actually genuinely missed over the last few years. But on the flip side, I'd also really like to host at home. When I moved in here, kind of, people are all still at different levels of comfort when it comes to mixing, which is understandable. So it hasn't quite been the experience I'd thought it would be when I first moved in. You think you'll move in, you'll have your friends round, you might have a housewarming, etc. And I haven't done any of that so far. So maybe this year is the time that I would get to host. I would still obviously be spending if I was hosting, but perhaps I don't need to budget for nights out, etc. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, truth be told, I'm a bit of a homebody as well. I actually really like being at home. It's where I'm comfortable and happy. So whilst it's great to get out and about, I actually think this year I probably would get more value from getting the house exactly how I want it than I would from kind of mad holidays, etc. For skincare and cosmetics, this is pretty easy actually. I really don't need much, and I'm happy to create a rule for myself that generally purchases in this area should be for when things are about to run out. The overspending I've done in this area in previous years really taught me a lot about making sure that you don't let spending in this area get out of control. And to be honest, when it comes to cosmetics in particular, my overspending was so bad previously that I still have things that are sealed to use up. So spending in this area shouldn't be too big at all. Now, onto clothing. So this is a bit of a tricky one. Now, if you followed me for a little while, you will know that I've barely bought any clothing for about 3 years. Over the last 3 years, I've bought a pair of jeans, a dress, and a couple of weeks ago, I bought some socks. So not much at all. And whilst that's been absolutely fantastic in terms of breaking my bad shopping habits, like stopping me shopping when I was bored or, things like that. And it's been amazing for saving as well. It has meant that a few things do now need replacing. I desperately need some new pajamas, for example. Now, the other issue I have here is that I'm at a point where I need to go through my wardrobe with a bit of a realistic eye. Now, I have a stupendous amount of clothes. Like, I have too many clothes, really. Clothing was always my Achilles heel when it comes to shopping. I love clothes, I really do love them. But most of the clothes I have currently were predominantly bought in my mid-20s, and so many of them are in truly beautiful condition because I've always looked after my clothes. but I'm now nearer to 40 than I am to 20, and whilst I don't kind of buy into the idea that you should dress your age or that certain clothes are for certain ages, I believe that you should wear whatever makes you feel fantastic. But if you put something on and you feel that it's too young for you, or that it's too short, or that it doesn't suit the body shape that you have now, because let's face it, we all change, you know, you're not going to wear it, you're not going to feel your best in it. So I think there's a few things that I kind of need to let go and maybe allow a few things in my wardrobe that are more appropriate for the lifestyle that I lead now. So with all of those things in mind, inevitably, I am probably going to need to spend some money on clothes this year. Now, in terms of budget allocation, this is going to depend on a couple of things, as always. But one of the reasons that I've bought hardly anything in the last couple of years has been lockdowns and restrictions. So I had no interest in buying anything to just sit at home by myself wearing it. But what it did teach me throughout the lockdown is that we don't need as many clothes as we think we do. And I'm going to try and bear that in mind when I'm shopping in the future. But also, I'd like to focus on maybe buying a few items that might help me rework clothes I already have. So for example, maybe I could buy a fine knit polar neck jumper that would go underneath the dress to make it more wearable, kind of dress it down so that it suits the lifestyle I have rather than the one I used to have, and kind of gets the best out of those clothes rather than just buying a complete new wardrobe. Also, as I declutter, because a lot of it is in a beautiful condition, I could look to sell some of the things that I know that I'm not going to wear, and perhaps allow myself whatever funds come from selling those items to be spent almost frivolously on new clothes, kind of offsetting the cost, if you will. So overall, I am going to allow some spending in this area. Some of it is needed, and given I haven't bought anything for quite a long time, it's not altogether unexpected. A few simple rules would be to not buy things just because they are on sale, to buy things based on my actual lifestyle rather than my fantasy lifestyle, and just to continue to ask myself why I want to buy this, just to ensure I'm not buying it because I'm bored or I'm down or anything like that. So let's move on to house and garden. Now, I'd really like to remodel the kitchen potentially. The flooring is likely to need redoing in there at some point, and my thought process is if you're taking up all of the flooring, you might as well kind of consider a full remodel at the same time. It kind of makes sense to me. However, kitchen remodels are really inexpensive, and in some ways, perhaps this should have gone in the save column. Now, as it happens, I don't actually hate the kitchen as it is. It is somewhat, I don't know, some people might consider it dated, but it is a classic cathedral style. The doors are solid wood, they are in beautiful condition, and because the house is a Victorian property, they don't look out of place at all. And because it's kind of weird to explain, but because because the kitchen overlooks the garden, because it's kind of solid wood and I've got a nice little table and chairs in there, it kind of has this little kind of like cottage feel. It's actually not bad at all. So I definitely could wait a bit longer, maybe even a couple of years, which would give me the opportunity to get real clarity on what I want. And I'd also be taking my own advice. I often say that you shouldn't make any expensive changes to a property until you've lived in the property at least a full 4 seasons, at least 12 months, maybe even 18 months, to really understand how you use the property and what you want. Because we often kind of move into houses and I think there's some things you immediately instinctively know what you want to do with the space, and then other ideas kind of evolve over time. So yeah, I would be taking my own advice if I waited. So it might be wiser to wait. Also, I know the previous owners were considering extending the space. They kind of talked through their ideas. So maybe if I waited, maybe I might want to do what they plan to do. And obviously that would need saving for, because it would be a bigger project. So my point being, it might actually be wiser to wait. Now, I did think about painting the units. I know that's really popular at the moment, but the floor will need redoing. To me, it doesn't make sense to spend all of the money kind of painting, buying new handles, etc., if it's going to be redone in a couple of years anyway, because as I say, I don't dislike it as it is. In fact, I actually feel like the kitchen looks kind of sweet, as weird as that sounds, when it's all lovely and clean and tidy, which brings me on to my next item on the list, which is a dishwasher. So I have decided I'm going to get a dishwasher, mainly because the kitchen has very little amount of counter space and even just 1 or 2 pots, and it looks just really untidy and messy, which I don't like. I like my space to be tidy, and because I cook from scratch predominantly now, it doesn't take much for there to be quite a few pots, and I feel like I spend my life washing up. First world problems, I totally recognise. So I was kind of on the fence of whether to get a dishwasher, because I was thinking to myself, maybe it would be better to wait, and then, you know, if I was going to do the remodel, buy new appliances, then maybe I might want the dishwasher in a different place if I remodeled, etc. But I've thought about it, and I am going to buy a dishwasher now, because I feel like if I can just remove, you know, make it easier to kind of keep the kitchen tidy, then I will find it enjoyable more. I will like the space more. I can be happy with it for longer before I think about maybe spending on a remodel. So, and I also feel like removing that time that I spend and just general annoyance, again, first world problems, I know, then that will just kind of be really valuable to me right now. Next up, sofa. So I'd really like a classic traditional style sofa, kind of to mirror the age of the house. And because the sofa I have is a good few years old, I was kind of considering buying something new as a bit of a treat and allowing myself whatever I want. However, I could kind of replace my sofa with a second-hand sofa. That would be a cheaper option. The other thing is I could look to just improve what I have. It still goes with the colour scheme because it's all nice and neutral. It is a little bit more modern because it's a scatterback, but it honestly doesn't look out of place in the space at all. It's just that the base cushions have sagged. It's absolutely fine, but let's just say it's not social media worthy, but it's fine. But what I could do is potentially replace the foam in those bottom cushions. That might not cost too much. Or if I wanted to save a bit more, I could just live with it as it is. It's not that bad. It's still really, really comfortable. And, you know, perhaps I could just look to do that next year. Maybe I will get the opportunity to replace it, maybe if I earn some bonus at work or something like that. But do you know what? It wouldn't be the end of the world if I had to wait another year for that one. Then I have Decor Elements. Now this is an area that I'm definitely going to allow myself to spend on. I don't actually need a lot. A lot of the pieces that I bought when I very first moved out of home years and years ago, I still absolutely love. Over the years, I've inherited things from grandparents that have sadly passed on. You know, so I really think some homes that look the best are the ones that kind of have little pieces that mean something to them. Like, I don't know, to me, they feel the nicest. Anyway, moving on. I'd really like some nice classic photo frames. I know TK Maxx sometimes carry them, kind of classic silver plate photo frames, and they have them at really reasonable prices if you're willing to be patient and wait. I'd also really like some artwork because the walls are pretty bare at the moment. Now personally, I'm not bothered about whether it's valuable art or not. I mean, it'd be great to have the funds to do that, but all I care about is that I like it. But I did think I might kind of like something old, again, as a nod to the age of the house. So I thought I might enjoy a rummage through charity shops, see what they've got in there, maybe have a look on eBay, and that would be a whole lot cheaper than going to a gallery. Then lastly for house, I've got basic expenditure, and that is most definitely going to be allowed. This includes things like fixings to put up mirrors. I've been living here for several months now, and the mirror that I'm going to put up in the bathroom is still kind of propped up somewhat precariously rather than hung. So I definitely want to kind of focus on doing things like that this year. There's one room that I think I want to put an additional radiator in. So it's just things like that. I'm definitely going to allow that expenditure this year. By the way, sorry if you can hear little noises. The dogs have decided that they don't want to go and lay on their blanket. They want to lay at my feet. So if you hear them, if you hear some like weird noise in the background, that's what it is. Okay, so moving on to the last item on the list that I might want to spend on, we've got garden. Now, if you've ever given your garden a makeover, you will know that they can eat money like no tomorrow. You've spent like £500 and it looks no different. Gardens can be so expensive. And I have big plans for the garden. I'd like to redesign one of the borders to make it more formal. I'd like to install some raised beds, kind of like a kitchen garden with herbs and so on. Maybe a small greenhouse. There's a paved area that does need some attention at some point. I'd like a bigger table now I've got room for it. Perhaps a chimney. So as you can see, all of these ideas, if I tried to do them all at once, would annihilate any savings that I might try to have. So I was trying to think of what I could do to kind of work towards some of these things without it costing the earth. So planting can be really, really expensive, but I thought maybe I could use this year to really formulate my plans better and then buy smaller, less mature plants that I could put in pots and get going so that they would be ready next year to plant in the border. And obviously buying less mature plants is a lot cheaper. I actually really enjoy gardening, so I could probably be perfectly happy just getting some pots and I've got lots of pots already, kind of getting some bulbs going, and bulbs can be really, really inexpensive and I'd still get my gardening fix. I could also get herbs going in pots. I did this really successfully in the past, and that would give me more time to plan and then save for the raised beds area. For the table, I could look for something secondhand, although I have noticed the larger, higher quality tables, garden furniture, etc. does still sell for quite a lot of money secondhand. But it wouldn't be the worst idea to see how the garden is throughout the full 4 seasons, because even just a few days ago, I noticed the sprouts of what I think are snowdrops. So I might find that if I just wait and see what kind of comes up, that I don't need to spend as much on planting as I might have thought anyway. And do you know what? It might also not be a bad idea to kind of live here a little bit longer and kind of see whether I end up hosting outside as much as I think I might. Because what I might find is that I end up hosting and using the dining room more than outdoors. So, and then it wouldn't make sense to spend thousands of pounds on outdoor furniture. You get the drift. Now, there's also other projects I could be getting on and spending my time on that would still be valuable to me. So I could spend time sorting out my dumping ground of a garage. That would be really low cost, probably no cost. And actually, there's probably a few things in there that I could sell, things I don't need anymore, and that actually could make me some money rather than me spending money. So I think for this year I will start on my garden plans, but in a lower cost way, as I say, through kind of buying less mature plants, getting them going in pots, looking out for some second-hand items, and just use this summer to really finalize my plans, because it's still lovely just as it is. Overall, I found the process of writing everything down that I wanted to save and spend and then working through it really actually quite helpful. It's kind of given me a little bit more clarity on where I can be a little bit more relaxed with my savings and on what areas I can afford to wait so that I can still meet my savings goals. So that's it for today's video. I hope it was helpful or interesting in some way. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye bye now. Mwah.